Microphone check. 1 2 1 2. I gotta speak into the microphone. This is the Blaze the Lion podcast. I am your host, Blaze. Blaze the Lion, Blaze Goldsmith, Blaze Doctari, and the list goes on and on. I'm no longer a machine. I gave that up. It's too hard being a machine. So yeah, I'm just working on being superhuman. In any case, welcome all. Right now, you're watching this live on YouTube on the Blaze the Lion podcast channel. We're also live on Facebook and on iSquad TV. Indeed. So this is the month of October, right? And if you've been following the podcast, you know that every single month we have a theme, right? So October's theme, if you didn't get the memo, is why fathers? That is the question. Does that make you think? What does that make you think of? We're going to dive into a lot of this. All right. So, all month of October, the theme is why fathers? Why fathers? Why? This officially is episode 80. We're getting there. Episode 80 on
Episode.
season 4. Yes. So, if you're loving the movement, right, and you want to well, first, before I even go into that, I want to say thank you for the loyal listeners. Thank you for all of those who share, who like the podcast, who have told friends about the podcast, who have given me guests for the podcast, who have donated to the podcast, who are monthly contributors to the podcast. I'm not wearing the shirt today, but we have the Blazer Line podcast shirts in tanks, t-shirts, and in long sleeve that many of us are wearing. So I want to say thank you. Truly and truly, thank you. For those who are jealous and you want to get down with the movement, you want to be a donator, you want to be a contributor to the Blaze the Line podcast. Simple. You can go to anchor.fm/Blaze the Lion/support. And right there, right on your screen at the bottom, it tells you have 3 tiers: 99 cents, $4.99, and $9.99 per month. All right, and you get to put the pressures. You get to be part of the foundation. All right, you get to be part of the movement of this Blaze the Line podcast. Indeed. So I want to dive into this theme because I feel it's necessary. When you think of fathers, what comes to mind? What do you think of? When you think of your father, what do you think of? Maybe you're a father. What does this topic mean to you? What does it give you? Tonight's guest is someone who has been on this podcast before. You may remember
Yeah.
his face. I can't quite remember which episode. For those in TV land, feel free to text or write in the chat which episode he was in. That should be a gift right there. If you can type in which episode this guest was in, you'll get a prize of some sort, maybe a gift card or something like that. For I don't know the episode number, but I do know the theme was sex and relationships. You remember that? That was last year, 2021. We dove in, and this guest had lots of insight. This guest had lots of jokes. Well, at least I think he was joking on some of those. But I think that's what made it funny. So that episode was. What do you mean? Wait a minute. Am I being censored here already? This is unfiltered. Well, not really, but in any case, I am excited to bring this guest forward. He is a professional. He is a
Can't remember.
Are you a grandfather?
Yes, I am a grandfather.
Oh, see? There you go. There you go. He is a grandfather. He is a business owner. He He is a distinguished Toastmaster. He's a mentor to many, and I think he has some of his daughters here in the chat. Hey, indeed, indeed. He is popular. He is himself, and that's what we love most. Welcome to the pod, Mr. Tony Hugh Moore.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. Very interesting monologue. So, fathers, you talked about the question what you think of when you think of your father. I think of lessons, the lessons that he taught me.
Hmm.
We can go from there.
Hmm. Yeah, many lessons. Let's dive in. Before we dive in, for those who have not seen you before, especially on this podcast, share briefly with the guests a little bit about yourself.
Well, besides being a father and a grandfather, I'm an avid tennis player, tennis coach. Professionally, I am a financial planner and tax planner. We work with clients in doing comprehensive financial planning because it's not just about your money, it's about your life. So we
Hmm.
look at all sides and take a more holistic approach to it. So briefly, that's what I do.
Hmm. All right. So, first question. When you mentioned just now that when you think of your father, you think of lessons. What was the most important lesson that you can recall from your father?
Well, the lesson that has saved me many times is count to 10.
Hmm.
And that lesson was as a child, I was pretty short tempered. And in order for me to think about my next action, he wanted me to learn to slow down. So count to 10 before you respond. And there's
Mm.
been many situations where it's helped me so much, kept me out of jail, you could say.
Hey, that's a
Yeah,
plus.
yeah, that's a plus. And give me time to reflect and to think about the response that I should give in that situation. So that is one of the lessons that I constantly think about and remember and always try to utilize before, especially in stressful situations.
Hmm. Yeah.
Just slowing down.
As a father now, I've been trying to teach my son how to take deep breaths
Mm,
when he's a little too excited or when he's upset. He starts crying and such, and his heart rate is racing. And I put my hand on his chest and I said, "You feel how fast your 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 heart is beating right now? Why not breathe? Deep breaths." And though so far he has not followed me in taking deep breaths, I have faith that he will soon at some point. But he does relax. He
that's good.
does slow down. Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Even though he's not responding the way we want him to respond as a father, the lesson is being learned. The seeds are being planted,
yeah.
and eventually they'll start to blossom, and you'll see the effect of that. But it'll take time.
Yes. Yes. It'll take time. Being a parent is definitely a journey.
It is.
And I've just begun. As my son is only 5. So I have a lot of journeys, a lot of great things to go through, right? Indeed, indeed. So for this theme, why father? So next question is why, or rather, what is the perception of fathers, especially here in America?
Wow. I when I think about that, I have to look back or think back in history
Hmm.
because I think society in general wanted to keep fathers out of the rearing of their kids. It may not have been deliberate, but that's what I thought about it. Because if you think about it, when my first child was born, we were just beginning to allow fathers to come into the delivery room.
Hmm.
Prior to that, it was in the waiting room or is out working. So fathers were like basically absent from the very beginning of the process of raising a child. It's like fathers were, okay, we need your sperm and that's it. We don't need anything
Hmm.
else.
Hmm.
But father is an integral part and very important part of rearing a child,
Yeah.
I think, in my estimation. And I think society has done damage, especially to black men, in trying to separate them from their families. And because if that bond is not formed at an early age, if that connection is not made, then you lose the feeling of responsibility and lose the feeling of caring for that child because there was never any connection made. And I think that needs to be made at a very early age and getting involved in the life and the challenges of rearing a child at an early age. And I think now that's beginning to change. Not as fast as I'd like it to see change, but I think I see the signs there that fathers are beginning to fight and be more vocal about wanting to be involved in their kids' lives, even in the cases of divorce or separation, whatever it may be. They want to be involved, and that's very important.
Yes. You said two things that really sparked something in me. One is the, and I'm gonna add my own words to it, right? So, but the maybe on purpose, maybe the agenda of removing fathers, especially black fathers, from the household, from the
Hmm.
unit, whether the single mom got more assistance from the government because the dad wasn't there,
Exactly.
right? So, and then for years, fathers were looked upon as just a provider, right? You go out and you work,
Hmm.
and then the mothers would stay home and they raise the kids.
Right.
So I feel like maybe we're turning the corner on that, where a lot more dads would like to be involved. A lot more dads
Hmm.
are there from the beginning, whether or not they're in the same house.
Right. Yeah. Uh, it's thinking about my father without my dad being present in my life, I wouldn't be the person that I am today
Mm,
because he showed me the love, he gave me the discipline,
mm,
he gave me skills that as a man you need to learn, especially and it's just not for the male child but also the female child because it's it's the yin and the yang of a relationship and if the mother is the yin then the dad is the yang or vice versa. So
mm-hmm.
there's a softness and a hardness there that fathers tend to be more, I would say, more tough love, where mothers tend to be a little bit softer. And I think you need both to understand that in life, there's going to be moments when you have to be really empathetic and soft, and times when you have to be hard.
Yeah,
You have to be tough and face certain challenges. And I think dad can bring that to the equation and show both sides, the emotional and the logical side of being a human being because we need both. We need emotions, but we also need to be logical in certain situations. And
yeah.
you know, that's one of the things I learned from my dad.
Mm. Looking back at my relationship with my dad, it's changed throughout the course of my life here. And truth be told, when I was a kid, my dad was, in my opinion, a monster, a animal. I feared my father so much when I was young. I was scared to voice my opinion. I was scared to talk back. Talk back. Not even there's no way. There's no way. My dad was just very aggressive and real direct and very blunt.
Yeah.
Uh, and then now how I see my dad is just very different. I see him humble and it's just changed over the years. So can you reflect on the perspective or the view of your father when you were a child?
Mm. You know, it was, there were times when I feared him and there were times when I didn't.
Hmm.
My dad used to give us these long lectures
Hmm.
before he punished us. So you know, he would talk for 45 minutes. And I remember one time my brother said to him, just give me the beating. I don't want to hear the lecture. But the funny thing is, years later, one of the reasons why he was lecturing is because he said to me, I never want to be mad when I am punishing you. I always want to
Mm,
be in a calm place.
mm,
Because if I'm upset, if I'm mad, then I may do I may do something to hurt you, and I don't want to do that. I want to be able to teach you a lesson and for you to learn from it. And so um, many times when I do something, and I was a kind of a daredevil child.
you?
He, yeah, he wouldn't. He would just write down what I did, and when it adds up to like five, then we would sit down and have our talk. He would give me a little spiel for each one, but then the big moment was when it got to five, and it's in those moments that I was afraid. I felt, oh my God, I'm going to get punished today because this is number five.
Mm,
So, in other times, my dad would actually listen to me, and but there are times when I thought he should have listened, and he never listened.
mm,
But in any relationship, it's never perfect. So
true.
it was, and as I got older, I learned to appreciate the, the elements of the discipline and the love that he brought, and when he actually gave me responsibility to take care of myself, because there was a time, and I can remember it distinctly, when he just said, you're on your own, in terms of your behavior, in terms of doing the things that I know was right. So, it's that's what I remember. Some of the things I remember of my dad,
Mm,
and that's what I try to bring to my kids, is to have the conversations with them and to let them know that eventually they're going to be on their own, and they're on their own now. But when they were little, it's like, okay, you can't do this. No, you're not going to the mall. But dad, my friend, your friends, whatever they do, that's between them and their parents. Dad, why can't I watch TV during the week? Well, that's my decision not to do that, because it's more beneficial for you to be reading a book or doing something more constructive than watching television. And sometimes they hated me for that, but now they love me because of what I did. So,
mm,
as a parent, and that's what I'm saying when I say the tough decisions of being, a little bit tough love, is that that has to say, no, you can't do that, even though the child or even the mom may be a little bit, no, you can't let them do that, but you have to be firm in that, because in the end, the results are going to be what it should be in terms of the type of person that they become.
mm.
And so my daughters are very creative and very independent, very outspoken, because I like to think that, I help to shape that. to shape them in that way.
Hmm. How would your daughters describe you? And actually, we have
Oh,
one of your daughters on the podcast. In
you do?
5, 4, 3. Just joking, just joking. No, I do. Well, so I want to go back a little bit before we move forward towards the present. Would you like to expound a little bit and elaborate a little bit on what some of those punishments were like when you were a kid, when you got to 5? So I'm just curious.
Well, he would ask me how many licks I wanted in my hand.
And what was your answer?
I would figure in my head, because going back to the count of 10, okay, if I tell him one, it's going to be too hard. If I tell him two, maybe three.
Mm,
There would be three licks,
mm,
or sometimes four, and sometimes not at all. So, yeah, it's, but I, the day that, I remember the day that he decided no more punishment. I'm on my own after that. I got to tell you the story because it's so vivid in my mind. I can remember exactly where we were. We're standing in the backyard next to the corner of the house. There were
mhm.
some tools there. And he said to me, if everything that I've taught you, if you haven't learned it by now, then nothing I do will change that. I was about 14 years old.
Wow.
And that was a very profound statement because from that day forward, he never had any issues with me because my thinking was, wow, now I'm responsible for me. Now I have to make the right decisions. It's no longer, oh, I'm just out there. And it's like a switch that just turned. And that doesn't mean I didn't do anything, that I shouldn't do, but I was much more cautious and more thoughtful in the things that I did from that point on, and
Yeah.
recognize that now it was about what I did and not what about he was going to do.
Mm, yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, 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 no. For sure, for sure. So what was the relationship as a child? What was the relationship that you saw from your perspective with your father and your mother?
okay. So secret, I never had a relationship with my mother.
Mm,
So my grandmother reared me for about 6.5, 7 years, and then I went to live with my dad.
mm,
And at the time he was married, so I had a stepmom. But a stepmom relationship is a lot different than a mother's relationship with a child. I learned that much later in life,
mm,
and so you know I appreciated the fact that as I got older, he would listen to me more because as a young boy, there were times when I was telling the truth, but because someone else was older than me told a different story, they would believe that. And that's very common in Jamaica. It's probably common all over the world. There was the saying of a child should be seen and not heard. So
mm-hmm.
if an adult said, "Yeah, you did it," regardless of whether you did it or not, you were being blamed for it.
Yeah.
And I remember those times when, you know, I thought my dad should have believed what I said because I was telling the truth, and he didn't believe me. That that was very upsetting to me.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I had a great dad. I had a great dad. If I didn't have a dad that was loving and strict at the same time, I don't know what type of person I would be right now, or where
Mm.
I would be, because I was too rambunctious and did too many daredevil things that probably would have got me killed.
Hmm. Can you think back? Because I know as a parent, well, I know first as a child, right? My parents would do things and have me do things. and they would say phrases like, "You'll understand when you have kids."
Hmm.
And it's like, no, but you're still being unfair or whatever. And it wasn't until I had a child, and it hit me that certain phrases that my mother or my parents would say, they started to make sense to me.
Yeah.
So, is there a time at what point did you realize that you just did or you just said something that was directly from your parents, like for your
Wow.
kids?
That's a tough question for me because I can't remember any specific incident or time. It's just the values that I had with and the thought process that I had
Mm,
in how I looked at life. But because my dad used to reason with me,
okay.
and he would ask questions, and in that reasoning, I would come up with an answer, and most of the time it was the right answer. And I found myself, I did that with my daughters.
Mm,
Is to ask them questions and reason with them, and I think, yeah, that would be the thing. But there's no special, and I use that in many situations. I remember once my daughter asked me, she wanted to go someplace, and I said, no, you can't, because, and why? I said, well, there's danger, and I don't want to put you in that situation. I said, but I can take care of myself. Now, at the time, she was babysitting, and what I said to her was, okay, you're babysitting a 2-year-old across the street. What if that 2-year wanted to run in the street? Would you let him? She said, no. I said, why not? Well, because they could get hit by a car and they don't see the danger. I said, so the same situation here. There are dangers that you don't see now. So I have to be the one to protect you. Eventually, you'll be on your own, and you'll you'll be able to see the danger and protect yourself. So that's one of the, I guess, the techniques that I learned from my dad that I use to this day.
mm. Yeah, there's a certain point as kids, right? Especially as teenagers, where we feel like we know it all.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? I don't know if it's more like 12, 13, or it's 15, whatever. But it's like you don't want to hear anything else from your parents.
yeah,
You got it. You feel that you're a great judge of character, and you know which of your friends are there to help you or hurt you. But at 15, 16, even at 18, there's still so much that you haven't experienced.
oh yeah, yeah. No, my daughters, when they were in their late teenage years, so daddy knew nothing. Dad, you're just old fashioned. As they got older, they got into their mid 20s and 30s. Now it's like, oh, dad is really smart. you know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Huh. Indeed,
and
indeed.
it really comes down to experience. It
Hmm.
really. I remember as a Toastmaster, my second daughter, uh, Nicole, she's very, what do I call it, creative, very outspoken, and she was probably about 15, 16 at the time when I took her to a Toastmasters meeting. And as you know, in Toastmasters, when we have table topics, I decided to ask a question. And the question to her was, what would teenagers say to their parents?
Mm.
And she said, keep talking. We may not seem that we're listening. We don't we don't have the experience to really evaluate and fully understand what you're saying. So you have to keep talking because we're hearing what you're saying. And that was very profound to me.
Mm. Yeah.
Made me realize, and made many parents in the audience realize, wow, even though they may seem to be ignoring what you're saying and not
Hmm.
really adopting it or putting it into effect, it's sinking in slowly, and it takes a while for them to grasp that. information and to make it a part of themselves.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And sometimes you don't realize. I know my personality is with parents or even with friends or girlfriends. They would tell me certain things about myself that I didn't really want to hear
Hmm.
and that I would disagree with. Like, not really hearing that. But when they would leave later on that night or the next day or the next week, I would think about it, say, yeah, they're right. I won't tell them though. I won't tell them. My ego is too high. But
You
they're
know,
right.
it- there's a lot of things that fathers or even parents in general can learn from their kids. My kids have taught me a lot of things,
Mm,
and it's helped me to understand them better and to deal with the world better because of their the information that they provided to me, or the actions that they demonstrated to me. And I'll give you an example. When my first daughter was old enough to graduate from a tricycle to a bicycle,
mhm.
she the tricycle she had was an old red tricycle. And it was like, oh, I need to get rid of that. Buy my second daughter a brand new ergonomic bike. That was the latest and the greatest bike ever. And when it came and we gave it to her, she didn't want it. She wanted that old red bike. And I go, oh my goodness, it's not her, it's me. I'm the one who wanted it.
Wow.
I wanted it for her. But what
Yeah.
she wanted was that old bike. And it didn't matter to her. And the other thing that they taught me is they didn't care about the presents that I bought them. They wanted my presents. They want me to be present in their lives. So when I was away for a long time, they wanted daddy, not daddy bringing me a present or daddy giving me something or taking me someplace. It's I want dad. And that made me realize that what's really important is the relationships that you have with your kids. And in order for you to have that relationship, you have to be present in their lives, especially in the early stages of development. You have to be present.
Yeah. Yeah. Mothers have this special bond, right?
Yeah.
That fathers will never have, and because they carry that child, in them, and they were able to feed and to nurture them, for the 8 months and 9 months and such. And dads will never have that. So do you feel that it's even more important for dads to be there from early? Because, well, so I'm gonna tweak my question a little bit. As children are in the womb, right, for those 9 months, do you feel like the babies can sense that the father is there?
Wow. Never thought about that question.
Mm-hmm.
Can they sense it?
Because my
I,
son does not remember a lot of things. I mean, he's 5, right? So when I
yeah.
tell him, oh, when you were 3 years old, blah blah blah, that was only 2 years ago, but to him, that was like a lifetime ago,
Yeah.
right? He's
Yes.
like, no, I don't
Yeah.
remember any of that. So there are a lot of things that I was there for when he was an infant and he was a baby, and I share those memories, and he's like, what? No. So I have to show him like the actual pictures. Like, hey,
Yes. Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
what you look like. This is.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if they can feel the presence of the father around while they're in the room.
Maybe, but when babies are at that age, nothing more. I don't think there's a whole lot that registered consciously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the issue is at that age, it's more for the father to get that feeling of caring and giving and saying, this is my child. I need to protect that child. I need to be there for that child, rather than the child really recognizing that the dad is there.
Mm.
Uh, there are things. My oldest daughter, she's a musical genius, and she's done a lot of things in the music industry. And one of the things I used to do when, even before my wife was pregnant, was I'd play the guitar and just make up a song, and practically, and she'd always want me to do that. And
Mm.
I think that had an influence on her having that musical ear that she has.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for a fact, but I just get that feeling. But being there and being a part of it makes me feel that I belong in that relationship, and I should be a part of their growth, and I want to see the best for them. So in my opinion, it's about the father making that connection with the child, and eventually the child will consciously make that connection with the father.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think the same thing applies to moms, because if the mother is not there, then there's not that bond that is
Yeah.
developed.
Yeah.
It's only through the time spent together that you're going to develop that bond, that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. As a parent, right? As a father uh, of more than one child, um, each child is different, right? Each child holds a special and different place in your heart, and all of that. Um, what if you were to go down for each child? Is there a one word or one phrase that describes your bond?
Wow. Mm. That's a thinking question. Is there one word that described my bond? I think the relationship with all three daughters are different.
Hmm.
My middle daughter caused me great worry during her high school, even before high school days.
Mm.
My first daughter, she was so focused. If she wanted to do something, she just, and that happened at birth. From the moment they were born, I could see the difference in them.
Mm.
And so when I look at my first daughter, I had a lot more confidence. So with her, I think confidence in achieving what she wanted to achieve. My second daughter, it's more, she needs more support, uh, more nurturing, so to speak.
Okay.
And my third daughter, I see her very smart. So that's really how I look at them.
Okay.
Uh, and both of all they have all have their strengths. They
Hmm.
all have their strengths, but they can. And I love them for the strengths that they have, but I also love them for the things that they don't do so well. Because after all, none of us are, none of us is perfect.
Right.
you know, we are perfectly imperfect, and
Absolutely.
so we have to take the good and the things that we want to see change. And sometimes it really doesn't matter. Those things are just minor things, the annoyances, they not cleaning up a room, or not doing your homework,
Mm-hmm.
or not preparing for band practice, that kind of stuff. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, it's all part of being a parent, and our job is to try to get them to be the best that they can be, and we do that not more so by our actions than our words.
Mm.
And when they have a father in their life that they admire, more than likely the person that they choose as a partner are going to reflect some of those same qualities that they see in their dad. And so that's why it's very important for fathers to be a very positive image. My second daughter will say, I married my dad because the person she's married is much a lot of the same characteristics like
Hmm.
like me. Very disciplined, very focused, you know, very compassionate and very caring when it comes to taking care of my grandkids. So, you know, all of those skills or values are learned, and they're learned by the environment they're in.
Yeah.
And we as fathers can have a great impact on, our kids if we are part of their lives in a positive way.
Yeah. Yeah. For your daughter, she said that she married her father. You were her first example
Yeah,
of a man.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. Hmm. Mr. Moore, do you know what time it is?
It's almost 9 o'clock. Yes.
This is true. It is also color time. Color time. Today, though, we're going to tweak it just a bit. So, normally in color time, the host would say certain colors, and for each color, you would share what that color means to you in a certain phrase or image. But today, especially for this theme of fathers, I'm going to tweak it just a bit.
Okay.
Indeed, indeed. So I'm going to say a color, and for that color, you're going to share which daughter resonates most with that color and why.
Wow.
I am making you work tonight. I'm sorry. All right, here we go. But I know you're phenomenal. So you got this. You got this. Here we go. Color number one, yellow.
Yellow. When I think of yellow, I think of a sunflower that blooms and is being bright. That would be my second daughter.
Okay. Okay. Yes, this is table topics on steroids. Yes. Thanks to Toastmasters. All right. Second color. Let's go with let's go with purple.
Purple. Mm, purple. I think purple is a mix of red and blue.
Hmm.
Royal, more stately. I'd say my first daughter.
Okay. Okay. Third color. Let's go with red.
Red. Oh, wow. Red. Could be sign of danger. That's my favorite color, by the way. Red is
Hey.
my favorite color. It could be, it's a warm, it's a warm color.
Hmm.
And that displays, again, I think I'll go with my second daughter for that. Yeah.
Okay. Next color. Let's go with white.
Mm. Okay, I'll go for my third daughter because it's either right or it's wrong.
Black or
No,
white.
there's no gray area.
Uh, all right. I like it. Makes sense. All right. We're now going to dive into something that you've done before. You've done several times, and you forced other people to also do this. So I feel like you'd be right at home with this. So
Just
this
because I
is
make other people do it doesn't mean that I'm comfortable with it.
this is true. This is true. So this is sort of like a end to color time, and we're gonna flow into this next game, this next portion of the show. So you know in Toastmasters where the table topics master or the Toastmaster of the day or such would create the beginning piece of a story,
Mm,
right? And then the participant will, is told to continue that story, right? So the twist is as you're so I'll start you off with a story, and as you're adding on to the story, I'm going to be throwing in random words associated with fatherhood.
okay.
Look at this word in the chat. Payback.
Okay, word in the chat. Okay. So I'm a little bit, so where is the chat?
Can you see it on the right by comments?
Right by comments. I
It
see
should be.
slides, video.
I think your screen is different than mine. Mine says comments. It has private comments.
No, I don't have, like you see, you are the controller, you are the host, so you
Hmm.
have those. I don't.
Hmm. Okay. No worries. I'll just yell out the colors. I mean the words. Sorry. All right. No problem at all. So here's the beginning of the story. For those that are watching, you may want to get your popcorn. This should be pretty entertaining. Here we go. Waking up early one morning, I decided to go to the beach for a recharge. As I arrived at the beach, I realized I was barefoot. Did I leave my house without my shoes? Did I leave my house without my family? For it's Sunday and we usually go to breakfast.
It's not mine.
Yes, sir.
Breakfast. I love being here, but barefoot? I didn't even recognize how I got here. But it's so real. I can feel the breeze in my face. I can feel the sand between my toes.
Crabs.
Oh, it almost bit me. Well, it almost bit me because I wasn't really watching where I was going. I was just enjoying the sunrise as the sun crept above the horizon and watching the golden rays flash across the water.
Toenails.
Toenails. You don't want to see my toenails because they're not pretty. They've been beaten up by playing tennis and stopping. So many times I want to wear my shoes. And that's why it's so funny that today I'm barefoot in a
Phone
public
call.
place. What was that?
Phone call.
Phone call. Oh, that's pesky cell phone. You know, I think sometimes I'm a slave to it because every time it rings, I want to answer it. And today, in this place,
Crying child.
so serene, I don't want to listen to the cell phone ringing. And I really don't want to hear that crying child with its mom laying there wanting something. And that's the thing
Waves.
with kids, you never know what they want. So you try everything in your power to try and get them to stop crying. And sometimes, I didn't hear that last one,
Waves.
waves. Sometimes the sound of the waves washing up against the shore will calm the baby and make the child go to sleep. So, mom, get up, hold the baby and walk, and maybe the child will stop crying because the motion of the waves and the motion of you walking will lull the baby to sleep.
Missing child.
Ah, my heart goes out for that mom because now her child is missing. Why? Well, not the one that she has, the one that was only 2 years old and went off running, and she can't find them. She's looking around and she's not paying attention to the child that is in her arm because she wants both of them to be safe and to be comfortable in mother and in her arms.
Missing tie.
Missing
Tie.
tie. This must be a dream because I see all of these things coming together and it really doesn't make sense. Why do I need a tie? I'm on the beach. I'm not going to work. But the tie is pretty anyway. But please, can I wake up now?
Brunch.
Brunch, lunch. Yeah, I'm kind of hungry after such a hard day's night with this dream that I'm having.
Angry wife.
Oh, she's shaking me. She's shaking me. You're snoring again. You're snoring again. Wake up. Wake up. Huh?
Rum.
Run. Yeah, it's time for me to get out of bed and go for my morning run. Maybe I'll feel better after a couple of miles and I'll get this weird dream out of my head.
That was good. that
It's good.
was
Okay.
good. That was good. That was good. They were gonna give you more in the chat. Some said rum. Some
Oh,
said
I could do with some of that. Oh, that was coming from the chat.
hmm Excellent, excellent. Good job. It's not easy to create a story
No, no.
and let it flow.
Thanks for that. I needed that exercise.
Indeed, indeed. You can bring it to Toastmasters and the next time we do hot topics.
Yeah, we should do that.
Awesome, awesome. So now to present time. Now for fathers. What can we do as fathers? How can we play our part? How can we make a difference?
I think we simply have to show up.
Mm,
And not just show up physically, but emotionally, spiritually. We have to want to make a positive difference in those little ones that we're responsible for. Whether or not you live in the same household,
mm,
you have to be a positive influence in their lives. And again, not just by the words you say, but by your actions. So if you say you're going to be there, be there. Be honest with them. And also we have to fight for the right to be in their lives.
mm.
Because there's still that, oh, it's about the mother and the father is not important, but that's not the case. And mothers have to be encouraging, and even when there is not a relationship, to try to get those fathers who are not present to be present. And we have to learn to listen to our children and learn from our children.
Yeah.
Because in many times they'll tell us what's really on their minds, how they're really feeling, but maybe not, they're not using the same words that we use because they don't have the experience.
Yeah.
But we have to listen in such a way and bring ourselves back to that time when we were kids ourselves and think about when no one was listening to us and we were crying out for help in some way and
Mm,
saying, please listen to me.
mm,
It's much more difficult now, I think, than when I was growing up because there's so many distractions now. There's
Yeah.
so many things out there that a child has to encounter that I never had. So
Hmm.
there's even more guidance that needs to be there. And when I say guide, positive in a positive way, and
Yeah.
we can deliver or we can give advice, we can give counseling, but the tone in which we give it has to be the right tone. It has to be empathetic in the way that we deliver it, and recognize that kids may not be able to comprehend right and wrong the way that we are able to, because they just don't have that experience. So we have to be patient, and that comes back to counting to 10, like my father would have me do, counting to 10 and listening.
Mm. Listening is important.
No, yeah,
Listening is key.
yeah, yeah.
Mm. The birds and the bees. Did you ever have that talk with your daughters?
Mm, birds and the bees. I would say probably not, because I can't remember a time when we ever. I've had talks with them about relationship between them and their mates,
Okay.
but I think mom did a very good job of doing that. And mostly when that time, I just listened, you know,
But you were present.
but I was present, you know.
Mhm.
Um, a funny thing is, my daughter, she told me this um, many times after they grew up. She said, when, you know, boys that would come to the house, they would be afraid of me because I wouldn't say anything. And she'd say, well, why didn't you say anything, Dad? I said, why? If I said you shouldn't see this guy or I didn't like him, you would probably want him more just because you want to rebel. So if I didn't say anything, there would be that, oh, what is dad going to do? Because the boys were deadly afraid of dad, because dad is just serious. Good evening, how are you doing? You know, and not really engaging in a way that would make them feel comfortable. And it worked. It worked for me. So I don't know that will work for everyone, but that level of respect for my kids, and that's another thing that my especially my oldest daughter said, you've always shown us respect, and that's a critical element also of a father interaction with their kids, is to show them respect, and that comes from listening, that comes from the way that you speak to them, that comes from not belittling them
Mhm.
and valuing their opinions, and you know giving them options, because our kids always had an opportunity to have an option. Okay, you can do this or you can do this, you can't do both. So they would make that decision, but the decision was narrowed down to one of the choices that we were comfortable with.
Yeah.
And so they grew up being able to make decisions on their own, because we didn't always say, okay, this is it, or this is the only way that it can be done. And there are things that I did as a father that really helped them mature in a way that made them um, more aware and more thoughtful in the things that they did. I don't know if we have time for this, but a quick story. When they were probably about 16, 17 years old, we took them to a sporting goods store because they needed some, you know, sneakers and stuff for sports. And we each gave them the same amount of money and said, you can go and you buy anything you want in the store, but it cannot exceed this amount of money.
Hmm.
My second daughter, she went in and she got a bunch of stuff. My oldest daughter, she got one pair of sneakers that was very expensive. So they come to the cash register now and they go, well, why does she have all of that stuff? Well, because she chose to go for the bargain. You chose to buy a very expensive pair of sneakers.
Yeah.
guess what she did? She put that sneaker back and went through the same process that
Mm,
my youngest one. So those are
mm,
some of the things that I did with them so that they grow up understanding the value of money. And
yeah.
when we gave them allowance, we took taxes from them. Okay, we took taxes, and then okay, some you have to put for long term, some for short term, and some you can
Mm.
spend now. So they end up with like $2 that they can spend now. And it was like, what? But guess what? At Christmas time, no, they have $200-300 in their kitty, and guess what? They didn't want to spend it.
Mm,
No, they could spend it if they wanted to, but now it's like, oh, I said, oh, so when we were buying it, it didn't matter. You wanted it, but now that you have to spend your own
yeah,
money, you're very thoughtful about that. So those
yeah.
are two of the lessons that I think they carry with them today in how they spend their money, and they're very smart about that.
Mm, that's important. That's important.
And that's important. Yes.
In in closing, what advice, what phrase would you say to fathers out there that are struggling, that are going through it, whether it be with the mom, whether it be with their kids, and just fatherhood in general for them is just very, very tough right now.
Have a conversation with your kids. Just have an honest conversation. We like to think at times that the father or the parent should be perfect and everything, we know it all, but show them your vulnerability and
Mhm.
they'll understand. If dad is struggling, you let them know you're struggling. You know,
Mhm.
they will be your best advocate. They will want to see things better. But if you're always presenting the front that everything is okay, that you're tougher, you're stronger, then it creates a barrier, right? You have to be approachable. And
Mhm.
some of the most difficult times in life when you're unapproachable is when things aren't going well, because you revert, you become introverted in your thinking and in your actions, and you want to push away the people that you care about and that you love. So have an honest conversation with your kids. Um,
Mhm.
you may not. The funny thing is, they may already know what you're going through, and you think that they don't,
Mm.
but they can pick up on. Kids are very intuitive,
Absolutely.
and they can pick up on certain things. So have a conversation. Let them know Daddy's struggling,
Mm.
but I still love you. I still care about you and want the best for you, and that can make a big difference.
Mm. I love that. I love that. Mr. Tony Moore, I want to thank you so much for your time, for sharing your experiences, for dropping gems, and just for being your genuine self. Because this is needed, and this theme, the guests for this theme were handpicked. For I felt that each guest was bringing light. So you kicked off this theme of why fathers, and I'm just so gracious for you. This episode right here was episode 80. The replay is available on YouTube in video, and then you can catch the audio replay on your streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. That'll be available tomorrow. Stay tuned for all this month. It's Why Father. So every single week, we'll be interviewing fathers just to change this narrative, to make a difference, to ultimately impact this world. This was the Blaze the Lion podcast. As we always say, peace and love.
Thanks for having me. Peace and love.